Welcome to the October 21st, 2020 Winnacunnet School Board meeting. As chair of the Winnacunnet School Board, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of COVID-19 pandemic, in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12 pursuant to Executive Order 2020-4, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we're providing a public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We are utilizing Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the Winnacunnet School Board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during the meeting through this platform. And the public has access to contemporaneously listen to and, if necessary, participate in the meeting through dialing the following phone number: 646-876-9923. Webinar ID number is 912-3929-9528, or by clicking on the following website address. It's listed in the agenda. It's zoom.us/J 912-3929-9528. Also, providing public notice of the necessary information by accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting, including how to access the meeting using Zoom or telephonically. Instructions have also been provided on the website of SAU 21 office at www.sau21.org, providing the mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there's problem with access. If anyone has a problem, call 603-926-8992 extension 103, or email revans@sau21.org. Adjourning the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance with each member states their presence. Please also state whether there's anyone in the room with you during the meeting, which is required under the right to know law. We will now take the roll call.
Heidi Terracina.
Here with family in and out.
Henry Marsh.
Here alone.
Leslie LaFond.
Here alone.
Mike Rabideau.
Here alone.
And Tony Delano.
Here with family in and out.
I have the roll call taken.
Thank you. Moving on, if everyone would stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States. Let's get to this.
Public for which it stands.
Stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, let's go to, still open here. Okay, now the minutes of the meetings, is there a motion to accept the minutes of September 16th and 29th? The 29th is the board retreat. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept them.
I'll
Second?
that.
Thank you. Are there any corrections, omissions? May we have a roll call?
Heidi Terracina.
Here.
Was that a
Oh,
yes?
yes, I'm sorry. I thought you said roll call. But yes.
Henry Marsh,
Yes.
Leslie LaFawn,
Yes.
Mike Rabideau,
Yes.
and Tony Delano.
Yes.
All right, thank you. I have the vote recorded.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on, I'm looking at finance report. Matt, are you ready or?
Thanks, Henry. So we have included the fiscal year-to-date expenditure report for current year 2020, 2021. There's no significant variances from last month. We're tracking well from a financial standpoint. Obviously, there are savings that we are recognizing due to the current learning model. However, as I reported in previous board meetings, our buildings accounts have some overages due to cleaning supplies. The rental of tents for outdoor classrooms, those type of COVID related expenses, PPE. But otherwise, we're in really good shape as we progress through the school year. I'll also note that the governor recently announced some additional funding source of $45 million for schools utilizing Gopher funds. So that's roughly, or not roughly, it's $200 allocated for every student enrolled. So we have at Winnacunnet, we have approximately 1,100 students. So that represents roughly $220,000. So that is some additional funding that we will be we expect to receive this year. So I'd be happy to answer any additional questions anyone may have.
Thank you, Matt. Any other questions for Matt? Excellent job, Matt. I'm glad you still have a voice after the last episode that you, congratulations getting through that. Let's go to continuing business. Dr. Lupini, update on the return to school.
So thank you. And I know Mr. McGowan's going to add some pieces here as well. Let me mention that we have a survey out. It's now in day 3 of 5. It'll end on Friday. We have about a 50% response rate right now among parents across the SAU. That survey is focused on the Thanksgiving and December holidays and the trimester changeover. And I want to do what I did last night, I guess, is mention a few of the very preliminary. Again, we have about 50% of the responses on a survey that we really need 100% of the responses on, and that we'll sort of track down to make sure that we get 100% because of some of the issues with respect to the remote learning academy at the elementary schools in particular. But just to highlight a couple of issues that we think we're seeing already with respect to that survey. And again, very preliminary, right? So I want to keep giving that caveat over and over. So we also did an employee survey that ended yesterday. We have identified a significant number of employees and families who've indicated that they will travel out of New England, outside of New England, over Thanksgiving and/or the December holidays, and they will therefore need to quarantine for 14 days following these trips. I was asked a question last night about, was that a recommendation? That is one of the listed sort of rules, if you will, from DHHS. I think we know from talking to Primex that our insurance companies would frown upon us deviating from those recommended steps. So those are the rules. We're making sure people know those up front that they would have to quarantine for 14 days following those trips. And we've identified that the numbers we're looking at could cause staffing and attendance issues for staff and students during those weeks. So it's something we're paying attention to, particularly as we begin to break them down by schools. Those results put down by schools. Could be that we have issues at some schools and not at others. I'll skip the elementary piece that was focused on the Remote Learning Academy and go to, we think we're seeing that a meaningful number of parents at Seabrook Middle School, Northampton, grades 6 to 8, and Winnacunnet High School are schools that are in a remote model right now, have indicated they wish for their children to remain in the remote model, even if schools return to in-person instruction for the second trimester. Significant does not mean majority, right? It just means it's an issue that we'll have to address. I can tell you that right now those numbers are running between 17 and 24%, and that is not an insignificant number to try to accommodate while we're running an in-person model. It doesn't keep us from doing it. It creates a complication. And those are the two I want to highlight in particular right now. Again, we have about 50% of the responses, and we're hoping to have, last time we did a survey and we were looking for everybody to respond, I think we're in the high 90s by the end of the week and only had to track down small numbers of people, and we're hoping for that same level of cooperation. So the goal for us that we've been working with Mr. McGowan and his team on is some level of in-person instruction at the trimester or after the first of the year. And I say that second part of that because of some of the complicating challenges that we have in front of us. And these are not going to surprise anyone who's tuned in to this discussion over time. So let me list some of those. One is the ongoing FFCRA leaves, particularly as they are associated with child care issues. And those numbers were in the 30s of those numbers. It's down a little bit, but not much over time. And the FFCRA expires on the 31st of December. So those particular leaves are no longer available. We do have people in every school who are on leaves under the Americans with Disabilities Act, but those are not numbers that necessarily cause us any complications in any of the schools in terms of opening. It's really the FFCRA leaves. And as I've said to this group over and over again for a number of months now, that's really a function of the number of schools that are remote. I get letters once in a while from parents who say, why can every other school open? And the fact of the matter, as we talk about Winnacunnet, is that there are no other high schools in the southeast part of the state, Exeter, Dover, Portsmouth, Sanborn, that are offering in-person instruction. And so that causes complications, obviously, in elementary schools and all for our employees as well. We're worried about those Thanksgiving and December vacation plans and what that can cause in terms of staff absenteeism or otherwise. We're worried about the increases in cases and quarantines at our other in-person schools. I will tell this board that is what I have spent the majority of the last 3 days on this week, is creating quarantine, working with DHHS on quarantine situations in our K-8 schools. 2 of them in particular, where we now have significant numbers, over 20 students, and in some cases, some classes that are in remote models because of cases within the school, cases brought in from outside. And I want to be as delicate here and as kind as I can, but one of the complicating factors in a number of those situations is that people have been less than complete in their reporting to us of these situations until it's too late, and until we run into a situation where we now have positive cases that could have been headed off, could have had less kids quarantined if we'd known about them sooner, but we weren't told. And so that's a worry and something I'm hearing from colleagues in other parts of the state as well. And then I mentioned the numbers of students who wish to remain remote. While we hear a lot from parents who want their students back in school, we have seen consistently in the surveys since way back in May, we've seen consistently somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 25% of high school students, parents who are saying they would prefer to stay remote. And this survey so far is no different in those numbers. And so again, we've been working with Mr. McGowan's team on plans that bring kids back for some level of in-person, anywhere between, some type of hybrid that could be 1 day, 2 days, whatever it may be, over time, and then trying to figure out how within that model to accommodate people who wish for their students to remain remote, because we do have some number, again, at least 15% of the student population that we have to figure out a way to accommodate in terms of that. And so I'll sort of stop there. I think in your November meeting, we will have these survey results finished, and we will have that model and that timing to propose for you and for each of the other districts as we look to move to more in person. So I'll stop there and turn it over to Mr. McGowan.
Good evening and thank you. And as Dr. Lupini mentioned, we're looking at all models, including a hybrid schedule to have students return to the building. A tentative timeline includes implementing a hybrid orientation schedule at the beginning of trimester 2. But as noted, there are many complicating factors, including the number of daily transitions that we can have in the building at one time, the number of students, the cohort sizes of students in the building, and the number of the staffing that we have available. What I've come to realize, and I think I may have mentioned it to some people, is that we have created great plans on paper, but when we go to look to implement them, it gets very complicated. But we're continuing to look at all possible options. We will have additional data at the end of this week, early next week, with the survey results that we will be able to create a more definitive plan getting the students to return to the building. Clearly, I know that the students and the parents want this to be back in the building, and I know the staff and I would love to see the students back in the building. Last week, we had students, the seniors in the building for the SAT testing. And again, it was great to see those students. I mean, even though they were there for testing, but again, it brings life back to the building. I mean, school exists because of the students. So we are working with the SAU office, taking a look at every possible option that we have to have students in the building in various forms over the next few weeks and few months.
Thank you, Bill. Are there any questions to either the principal or to Dr. Lupini from the board? Leslie?
Bill McGowan, are we bringing kids back in for labs or any other kind of classes at this point? Are they coming in? I thought that was one of the things that we were going to try and get to, but I wasn't sure if we got to that or not.
That was one of the things that we had planned to doing, but we have not been able to implement it based on some of the factors that are involved in getting the students in the building.
Okay. All right.
Another question that I've been asked by a couple of people. Are the counselors in school daily that can set up appointments, especially for the seniors that are preparing for college? Are there any advisors, or how many? A lot of the parents are in flux. It's maybe the first child going to college, and obviously the seniors, this is crunch time for within this next month to get applications and help with the applications. Are the counselors here to do that?
All the counselors are in the building. I do know that they're meeting virtually one-on-one with the students. I know that a college counselor is also meeting with students. I know at the beginning of the school year, we did have some forums with the seniors. So yes, that's happening.
Thank you, Bill.
Henry, I've got a question for Mr. McGowan. Under the hybrid model for the high school, what percentage of students would be in the building at any given time, typically?
Well,
The model
can
that
I
we're
jump
looking
in
at,
there? Tony, we don't know. I mean, hybrid model doesn't mean anything in and of itself, other than less than 100%, right? It depends on the model. It depends on the class sizes. It depends on the size of the room. I mean, I think we're looking at something like 50% is probably what we've talked about. But remember that 50% probably won't be 50%, because if you factor in that 15% of the overall student body that right now tells us they aren't coming back, right, to an in-person model, it would probably be somewhere just less than 50% is I think the discussions that we've had. Is that right, Bill?
yes, we're looking at approximately half the student body in at one time.
Thank you.
Oh, are there any other questions from board members? Heidi?
Principal McGowan, and I had a question for you. I know we were talking about budget earlier and that we had budgeted for outdoor tents, and I've been over at Winnacunnet and noticed that there are some outdoor tents in the back part of the high school. I'm just curious what those have been used for.
They had been used initially during the orientation schedule. They've been used. Lately, they've been used by some of the athletes as far as, before games and stuff like that. But currently right now, based on the time of year, they will be removed shortly. So they haven't been used to the effect that we had planned originally, but they were used by students in classrooms when we started the school year.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Is there anyone else? Okay. Are we ready to move on? Okay. Let's see what we got here. Dr. Lapini, you were going to address the, Mr. McGowan, the November regular board meeting.
No, that'll be me. No, so November board meetings, that we can really do A and B sort of together. We've worked with boards that expressed an interest in having in-person meetings. The complicating factor for us in any of that was the procedures that are necessary in order to bring people in. What was necessary in terms of cleaning protocol, having the right number of space, having the right kind of space available for a particular group size. I mean, for example, if you look at the group size tonight, your room that you normally meet in would not be able to hold that number. So, and the problem we have in this SAU is doing that 5 times over in 5 different places. So the solution that we happened upon, the proposed solution, which the other 4 boards have agreed to, is to have our November meetings as a trial at the high school in the auditorium. The other boards meet one meeting following another, and so there will be some time in between, and there will be cleaning. The board will be on the stage. The audience members can sit in the auditorium, appropriately spaced, microphones cleaned, all those kinds of things for public comment, and all of those kinds of elements, and that we could have an in-person meeting. Our boards have all voted to, I want to make sure what I have here in front of me. Yeah, our boards have all voted to do that in November, and then take a step back and evaluate how that worked as we head into December to see whether it continues or not. Mr. Marsh is right when we put together this agenda to point out that we also need to request of this board that you allow the other boards to utilize the Winnacunnet auditorium at no cost for their regular school board meetings during the month of November. So we'd be looking for you to approve the idea of a face-to-face meeting in November in the auditorium at on your regular date at your regular time, and for you to allow the other boards to utilize the auditorium for their board meetings in November. And the dates are listed in in that particular motion.
Okay, thank you, Dr. To clarify that, but I never said about no cost. No, I'm just kidding. Is there someone that would like to make a motion to allow the other boards to utilize Winnacunnet High School as their board meetings?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Second? Heidi?
Sorry, I wanted to ask a quick question before
Okay, right ahead.
if that's possible. So allowing the boards to come in, are we also saying, yes, it's okay to allow the public to come in? And at what point are we making sure that we're following state guidelines for current COVID conditions? Just
Right. So yes, you cannot hold a public meeting without allowing the public. We will also have these meetings set up so that they will be live streamed. So people will have the ability to make public comment via from outside the meeting, so that people who don't wish to attend can attend the meeting in that fashion as well. And there will be a cleaning protocol and seating protocol in place and masks will be required. There'll be a set of conditions that we use for many of the functions, including school, that we're running right now, that will be in place for that meeting to ensure all of those things, Heidi.
thank you.
Bill, one question. Is this motion covering both the change to the board meeting and also the use of the facility?
No, I think it's separate. I think this board should, Mr. Marsh should also act to take action to suggest that they want to meet in public in November, and then take action on allowing the other boards to use Winnacunnet High School. I don't think the order necessarily matters, but on both those items.
Okay.
Would it be possible to couple those?
You can certainly do that if that's what the board wishes to do.
If there's a friendly amendment to the original motion?
Sorry.
The motion being to have our board meeting in the auditorium as well.
Right.
That's a friendly motion.
Correct.
That just add to that one. Okay.
Okay, so we're going to add it all together as far as
Right.
all meetings. Correct. Okay. I'll make
Right.
that motion then.
Thank you. So the motion has been made as the friendly and who made the original to accept it?
Mike made the original.
I did.
Okay. Okay. So we're going to vote on roll call on the motion, and the motion is to allow the school boards of Hampton Falls, Northampton, Seabrook, and Southampton to utilize Winnacunnet High School for their November meeting. And Winnacunnet High School will also use the auditorium for their November meeting.
And who was the person that was the second on that?
I'll
Who's
second it.
Leslie, the original was Mike. And he just added on to his original motion.
Right.
Okay.
Mhm.
All those in favor on the roll call?
Heidi Terracina,
With strict safety precautions in place, yes.
okay. Henry Marsh,
Yes.
Leslie LaFond, Leslie LaFond,
Yes, sorry.
Mike Rabideau,
Yes.
and Tony Delano.
Yes, and also, like Heidi said, safety precautions.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm looking here. The next is the resignation. We can do that in
No,
executive.
no, sorry. The next is irrigation improvement bid
Oh, I'm
award.
sorry.
That's okay.
Irrigation improvements bid award.
Yes, thank you. So the bid process has concluded for the proposed athletic field irrigation project. Bids were sent directly to 6 vendors. 3 attended the walkthrough. However, we only received 1 bid from Smart Water Management. We are, typically we do prefer two to 3 bids received. However, we have worked with this vendor in the past. We are comfortable with their quality of work and their pricing. So as such, we are recommending award of bid to Smart Water Management in the amount of $24,840.
Are there any questions on the bid? I'm uncomfortable with just 1 bid, but what is the reason for the improvements in the irrigation?
So we have significant issues with our irrigation as far as there's portions of it that are not functioning. We spend several $1,000s every year on repairs. I don't know, Bill, do you have any additional context you want? I think that's essentially it.
It's just the repairs, replacing the heads so the heads are more efficient and the whole timing sequence so we have better control.
Yeah. I think there's 167 heads that are being replaced in total.
Is there a reason why we only have 1 bid?
Yeah, good.
Well, like I said, we sent it out to 6 vendors. We publicize it. We had 3 vendors that came to the walkthrough. We always prefer to have multiple bids. However, oftentimes, particularly, what we're seeing recently is that there's a lot of work out there. I think you see that both residential and commercial when it comes to these type of contracting work. So there's less incentive. However, if the board likes, we can certainly rebid it out. I'm not certain if we'll get a better response, but we can certainly try. We're at the mercy of the market conditions. So.
But when would they be able to start? Because if we vote in November, they're not going to be able to start until March.
So we were hoping to get this done so prior to the spring season starting.
Matt, you mentioned that you've worked with Smart Water Management before. Now, was that work on the irrigation system in the athletic fields?
I'll have to check with John Gamache as far as the specific work. I'm assuming that's what it had to do with. Yes.
Okay, so they're familiar with the existing system already, which is a bonus for us.
Matt, it's Tony. Just kind of thinking about what Mike just said. They've done work. They're familiar with the system. Did the other bidders give any reason for declining? I think you may have answered that, but
Yeah, I mean the common refrain, and I can't give. We didn't get feedback from every vendor, but oftentimes it's availability. In this case, we had 2 vendors that they didn't have the availability in order to do it during our time frame that we preferred. So.
My opinion is that we would.
Leslie, I think you froze.
We lost her.
She's in.
I care about Leslie's opinion. I don't know about everyone else, but I'd like to hear her opinion.
Me too.
She'll get back to us.
Matt, has Smart Water Management won multiple times?
We have not bid out for an irrigation project since I've been here. So the irrigation work that I've been, involved with has all been under the $10,000 threshold. Smaller projects, repairs. This is a larger scale project replacement. So this is the first RFP that I've been involved with. I could certainly find out if in years back, but I'm doubtful that there's been a recent project.
She's back. Leslie?
Yeah. Sorry, I don't know what happened. My Chromebook just went completely black. I'm like, oh, hello. It always happens when I talk. I notice, guys. My thing would be, I would, just because I think, like you had said, the contractors are booked out. Everybody, I think going with, I know that it's only one, but I think we'd be wasting precious time, and probably the prices are just going to go higher, that I would go with this one.
Is there a motion, Leslie?
I make a motion that we accept the bid as stated.
Thank you. Second?
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Mike. Will we have a roll call vote, please?
I have that as Leslie and Mike, and roll call Heidi,
Yes.
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes.
Mike Rabideau,
Yes.
and Tony Delano.
No.
Okay, I have that vote recorded.
Thank you. Let's see. We're moving on to policies. This is the second read.
Yes, so this was originally scheduled in the way we've been doing this work. First reads at our regular board meetings, and second read then at the joint board. Unfortunately, not all of our boards were represented with a majority of their members at last night's board meeting. And so at Mr. Marsh's suggestion, which I thought was a great one, we're going to actually take these for second read to each of our boards over the course of their October, in your case, and November board meetings in their case. So these are recommended for a second read. They've been vetted by the Joint Policy Committee. They've gone through a first reading with each of our boards, and so we would require a vote for adoption by each of our boards.
Thank you. Is there a motion? I'm sure everyone has read.
It's riveting.
Yes, it is.
I stayed up all last night and read every single word.
I'm so sorry.
What was the last one about, Leslie?
Did you notice the nose is growing?
Yep. Is there a motion to accept the policy?
I'll make the motion because I was on the policy board. I read them.
second that.
Okay, great job, Mike. Okay, and we have a second from Heidi, and may we have a roll call, please?
Tony Delano,
Yes.
Mike Rabideau,
Yes.
Leslie LaFawn,
Yes.
Henry Marsh,
Yes,
and Heidi Terracina.
Yes.
thank you.
Vote recorded.
Okay, the next one is something that the board has got to talk about because we've committed to travel guidelines. So Dr. Lupini, or
Yeah, I'm happy to describe this to you. We have, thanks to Mr. Abood, the athletic directors from the southeast part of the state that did a great job in setting up guidelines that would allow our students to participate in interscholastic athletics safely. We've had a successful, at the end of this week, 5-week season for our sports. One of those guidelines was that we would play within a 35-mile radius, and that allowed us to conduct these sports over the 5 weeks. By the way, another of those was that all the schools agreed that they would have home fans, limiting a certain number of tickets, and that's worked as well. The NHIAA, in their wisdom, has stepped in and decided that to have a state tournament in each of these sports that will first be conducted within those regions, and then would go on to, I think Aaron told me, semifinalists in many of the sports. If our teams were to make it past those regional tournaments, they would be asked to travel potentially outside of that 35-mile radius. However, those are the guidelines that we established at the beginning of the season. And so in order for them to participate and go further than 35 miles, it would require board action. There's something attached to this one that I don't think you'll see very often. You've probably never seen before in the time I've been here, and that is that the administration does not have a recommendation on this item. And that's for this reason. I think what the NHIAA has done, because most districts have established these kinds of guidelines, I think it's very difficult because they're asking boards to make a decision and keep safety on one side and keep the interest of their students who obviously want to go on and participate in a state tournament on the other side. I think it's a terrible, terrible choice, a terrible thing to do to local school districts and administration. And yet, for our students to potentially participate, we have to know where you stand on this. So we have a guideline in place right now that would not allow our students to travel outside of the southeast part of the state, essentially, to participate. There are school districts, I understand, unless I've heard incorrectly, Dover, for example, took a vote and said, no, we're not going to waive that requirement. We're only going to participate in this tournament if the tournament comes to us. We'll be glad to host games in this region here at our school. But so we need to put this on the table for you, because the other thing that the NHIAA has suggested is that they will have a 2-parent ticket per participating student athlete
Can't hear.
guideline,
There we go.
which means there will be fans from both districts at these games, which is unlike the games that we've played to date. So we've laid this out, what the motion would need to look like to modify the administrative guideline currently in place for interscholastic athletics and allow our high school teams to travel beyond the 35-mile radius for the purpose of competing in NHIAA tournament games, should they qualify for games beyond our region. That would be the motion if indeed the board chooses to exercise it.
Wow.
Can I ask a question, Henry?
Yes, go right ahead, Tony.
To Dr. Lapini, where did the 35 miles come from?
We took a look at what some other districts around us were doing, and working with Aaron, established that in terms of an area that we thought would allow us to play games against the 5 schools that we needed to fill that out. So it was, I mean, some people did, I think Sanborn, someone told me, did 25 miles. They were essentially, Tony, designed to say, we're going to play games here in the southeast part of the state.
And that was developed over the summer?
Trying to, all time has run together since March, but I believe that's right.
I think it was late summer, start of the fall. Yeah, I've got Mr. Boo is available too if we have any questions.
Oh, thank you. There he is. I didn't see him before. There he is with his hand up. That's great. Always good to have Mr. Abood come in and bail me out.
I'm gonna bring him in.
So I'm very supportive of this. I just wanted to understand the 35-mile standard more, what other districts are doing, and how far do we even know how far we'd actually have to travel. And the last thing I would say, and then I'll stop, is making sure people are following the safety guidelines at the games.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Can you guys hear me? I'm in my car. I pulled over just so I could
Well, it's
speak
good
right
that you
now.
pulled over. Thank you.
So Tony, basically the 35 miles, like Bill said, came from what other schools were doing, and also we looked at our football conference because that was already regionalized, and Spalding was kind of the furthest school we would have to compete against within our conference, and so we kind of set that number at 35 based on Spalding. In terms of protocols, all the Division I schools have been following the same protocols, including temp checks before games, doing the screening before games and practices every day. The 5 weeks have worked out really well. Like Dr. Lupini and I talked about today, it's worked out really well. And so we just, in terms of that, it would be, like Dr. Lupini said, tough to say no to kids in terms of moving on if they were to make the semifinals. Unfortunately, our field hockey team lost today to Timberland. Yeah. So, one of the teams that, could have really moved on did lose today. But we have boys and girls soccer next week. We have volleyball next week. We have football next week. And, the first 2 rounds of every tournament game are going to be within our region. And then if we are to move on to the semifinals of the state tournament, we're kind of looking for, I guess, approval to, it's not even a guarantee that we would travel outside of the 35 miles. We could be playing someone within that 35 miles, but at the same time, looking for approval to continue to compete should we make a semifinals of the state tournament.
Thanks, Aaron.
I have quite a, oh, sorry, Tony, do you have another question?
No question, just said thank you.
And then we also have cross country who is competing in the state tournament at Derryfield in Manchester, and then should any of our athletes qualify, they'll make it to the Meet of Champions, which would be in Nashua, and that Meet of Champions in Nashua would be obviously outside. But cross country is following some really strict guidelines in terms of staggering starts and all of that stuff. So they've been pretty safe with cross country.
Mike Rabideau here. One of the problems I have with this 35-mile radius is that you're looking at various circles of 35 miles. So if you're on the periphery of our 35 and you're playing in the next 35-mile circle, then you're really overlapping into other areas and introducing that to our athletes if we're playing against them. So that's 35 miles a little dicey, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a little dicey, and it's also a little arbitrary. I mean, we have towns 5 miles away that, we all know have higher numbers, and then towns that are 50 miles away that have nothing. So it's all dicey, and it's all semi-arbitrary, I would say, as well.
I have a comment. I just think, as both Aaron and Dr. Lupini said, these teams in the D1 especially have been following the protocols so strictly that, I, for one, have a very hard time telling kids who have made it to a certain point that, oh, sorry, really glad you did it, but you know what? You can't go to the state. You can't go to the championship. My personal belief is that we should allow them to go. Do I like the way it's being handled by, the officials? No, it should have been a decision that was made, I think, for the entire state. But for my opinion, I think I'm okay with letting them go because they have all been following the protocol. I'm sure the protocols would be even stricter when you got to the semifinals and the finals. I have that feeling. So I'm for letting them play.
And I will say too, Leslie, in terms of a semifinal or a final, it would be a situation where I would go to the event and we would have, in terms of fans, we would have a guest list, and it would be, we would do something like that where it wouldn't just be open to everybody in terms of fans.
Mhm.
But I mean, we would continue with the guidelines and we would continue with the protocols that have been in place with the screenings and the temp checks and all of that. And that's what we would do if we were to make it. I mean, this is also a hypothetical.
Right.
Right now we don't have a team that's made it. We've only had one team even playing a playoff game up to this point.
Right.
Right. But it's hypothetical, but we would run out of time and we would have to bring the board back together and all that
Right.
kind of
Correct.
thing, which is
Yeah.
why
Yeah,
we're here.
Yeah.
So Leslie, should we consider what you just said a making of that motion?
No, I want to talk,
Well,
please.
yeah,
Heidi has something here.
I have quite a few items I wanted to talk about for a moment if I could. The first is, am I correct in that I think we've already made an exception for golf? Because I think I saw golf had gone up to North Conway. Is that right?
So golf, we played Division II in golf. We went out to Keene. So we did make an exception, and in our protocols, we had stated that golf was the exception to the travel rule from the beginning because of golf course availability.
Right.
So we didn't even put the 35-mile restriction on golf because of availability and because of the nature of golf, where we felt that it was a socially distant sport to begin with, especially when I play it is.
All right, thank you. So I have another question. My question is, since the NHIAA, they originally just said basically everyone fend for themselves. So that I thought the Southeast area, Aaron, you guys did an excellent job of creating a plan, getting the kids going. My question is, what did other parts of the state do? And I guess before you answer that, what did other parts of the state do? But are we leaving out other athletes and students from around the state whose schools or districts decided they weren't going to do sports? So do we have areas where kids just can't even participate, but now NHIAA is saying, oh, we're going to have the state championship, and these poor kids' school didn't even allow them to participate to begin with?
Great point. As far as I know, there are no New Hampshire schools that are not participating, and I could be wrong. I mean, if you go north of Concord, they're basically full go, and that's kind of, I think, not to defend the NHIA, but to say that I think the reason they haven't made blanket policies is because the number of cases are far lower and close to zero in other places of the state, so they didn't want to make blanket statements. So in terms of schools participating, all the Division I schools have participated, from Hampton to Keene, up to Concord and south down to Salem and Nashua. Obviously, we know that Pinkerton kind of dropped out over the last week or so, but that was based on their safety protocols. But in terms of participation, all the Division I schools have participated. So pretty much they're all in the same boat now, looking for approval in terms of if their school is to advance past the first two rounds of the playoffs, they're looking to continue, or in terms of cross country, if we make it past the Division I meet, if we make it to the meet of champions. And so that's kind of where everyone's at. But as far as I know, everybody has participated, especially in Division I.
Okay, thank you. That was my big question, is if other schools were being left out and other students were being left out. So, thank you.
Yeah, not that I know of at all. And again, I can't, I mean, as far as I know, nobody's been left out. Everybody has participated.
Okay, Tony? Tony?
Yes. Yep. I think, Aaron, you touched on this for a second. Are there any data available that tell us that the 35 miles and the procedures have been successful? Do we know anything about infection rates in athletes, coaches, officials, spectators?
I can't tell you that the 35 miles has been effective, but what I can tell you is that at Winnacunnet, we've played 5 weeks of sports. We've followed protocols. And as far as I know, we don't have a case of COVID. I can tell you that. I can tell you that there are a lot of other schools that have followed the same protocol and have been, it's been very effective, and they've had very positive results. I can't speak for everybody. And there's no way for me to know that data would say 35 miles has been effective, because, if we set it at 50, that could have been just as effective or not. I don't know. It's hard to say what could have happened if we did something differently, but I can say that what we've done has worked, and we've had very positive results and very positive feedback from families, from players, from coaches. We haven't had one positive case as of today, and I hope we could all knock on wood for that one. I don't want to jinx us here, but we've been very, very fortunate, and things have gone well.
Thank you.
Hey, I've been very quiet here. The similar thing happened to me when I was a junior in college. I was undefeated going into my junior year, and the week before the Nationals, the athletic director decided that I had qualified for the Nationals, that he wasn't sending anyone to the Nationals. Our Nationals were in North Dakota, but that's another story. But again, for me being an athlete, you go, all through the year or 2 years, 3 years, and get to the point to go to the Nationals, and someone pulls the rug out from you, whether you'd be an All-American or a national champion, that doesn't matter, that you were there. And to pull the rug out of these kids that have worked so hard and have, for example, a minimal schedule, and family members not being able to go to some of their games, and have worked hard, as Aaron has stated. They're no less an athlete because of the number of games that they played. 35 miles was an arbitrary number. And for example, if you were in, say, Manchester, for example, you've got a 35 mile radius. Here, we've got about half a circle, because the other half was the ocean. So these other schools have a larger area. You like that, didn't you, Aaron? Okay, so again, I'm going to vote for the kids to go, but we'll see what the motion brings. Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we allow the student athletes who qualified to move up and on to a finals outside of our 35-mile radius to attend, and that the parents get 2 tickets as stated. Is that what we wanted?
So the 2 ticket thing. So throughout the 5 weeks of the regular season, nobody has allowed visiting fans to attend. We had a field hockey playoff game today, and we did not allow the Timberlane parents to attend. The NHIAA guide recommendation is that in the playoffs, visiting fans would be allowed to attend. At this point, we're not hosting any more outdoor events. We are hosting a volleyball match next Thursday night. So I guess that would be something to consider.
Can I interrupt, Aaron?
I would say outdoor only, right?
Can I interrupt? What we've given you here as a suggested motion has nothing to do with these regional play-ins, right? There we're going to abide by all the rules that we've abided by with the other schools in our region. This said, because they're all within 35 miles and the fan issue is addressed by the agreement that Aaron and the other athletic directors have made leading up to this time. We said here the motion to modify the administrative guidelines currently in place for interscholastic athletics and allow our high school teams to travel beyond the 35-mile radius for the purpose of competing in NHIAA tournament games should they qualify for games beyond our region. In addition, such action would allow our teams to participate in games where both teams would be permitted to have fans present per NHIAA guidelines, which is understood to be 2 parent tickets per participating student athlete. That covers it, because again, these games, which I'll call play-ins, that's not what they're called, but these games within our region are being governed by the same rules that Aaron and the athletic directors from all those schools have had in place for the last 5 weeks.
Okay, yeah, what you said. That's my motion.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second. Or Heidi second. It's good.
Yeah, I'll
Great.
second.
Okay. Are we ready for a roll call vote?
Can
Roll
I also
call?
just say, before I do that, can I just say thank you to Aaron and the athletic department for giving us 5 weeks of healthy, safe, great competition across the board. So
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you again.
So,
Thank you.
Eddie Terracina,
yes.
Henry Marsh,
Yes.
Leslie LaFond,
Yes.
Mike Rabideau,
Yes.
and Tony Delano.
Yes.
I have that vote recorded.
Thank you. We have under personnel, can we do that after?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, the public comment. I know there were several people that wanted public comment.
Rhonda, do you want to help Mr. Marsh structure how we'll do that?
Before we start with the public comment, our board members traditionally have not responded to any comments that are made. So if it's directed to board members, you probably will not get a response from any of the board members. But we will listen to, I think there's a couple people that had letters they wanted to read as well.
Right now, Mr. Chair, I have 3 people with their hands raised. What I'm going to do is I select you, I have 5 now. I will say the name that appears on the screen, and when we give you permission to speak, we are just asking that you state your name, your affiliation with the school, and your address. So it looks like the first person I have is Pam Chase. And you will need to unmute yourself once we've given you permission to speak.
Do I have permission?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Good evening. My name is Pam Chase. My affiliation with the school is I have a senior and I have a son who graduated in 2019, and I live in Hampton. Do you need anything more than that?
No, I think that works.
Okay, great. Dear WHS Board, SAU 21 Board, Superintendent Lupini, Principal McGowan, and faculty. Any good educational administration knows that best practice is to survey your stakeholders. Since there has been no survey to date in regards to remote learning, parents, students, and taxpayers have collaborated to share our feedback with you this evening. I will serve as a spokesperson. Many of these stakeholders are on this call. As you are aware, 75% of the respondents to your summer survey were in favor of returning to in-person learning. Again, when you surveyed the families in regards to holiday vacation, it is estimated 80% are in favor of in-person learning. These families all believe the benefits of having their student in person outweigh any possible risk. Firstly, I will give you the consolidated feedback obtained from our sampling of students over the past 2 weeks. Students are feeling isolated and lonely, overwhelmed, disorganized, apathy for learning, no accountability and structure, struggling to wake up, attending class from bed or the couch, given they do all shut their cameras off, no peer-to-peer collaboration, which is how many students learn best, still no in-person opportunity. Whatever happened to integrated arts and after-school help in person? Some are getting straight A's, yet they're still depressed and express concern that they can't do this much longer, while others are failing classes and are at risk of graduating. They have no connection with their teachers, nothing to look forward to, traditions that will never happen, proms, sporting events, concerts, plays, banquets, making new friends. Thank God for sports, or I would have nothing. I got that comment quite a bit. Why bother? We're never going back. Secondly are the consolidated comments from our parent sampling. This online platform is only a small percentage of how students learn. There are many learning styles, and this remote option only addresses one. They have doubt in the administration that they will open up prior to January or even at all in 2021. Parents are overwhelmed balancing their work schedule and monitoring their student who is at home alone up to 10 hours a day. Confused with the matrix and feel unrealistic measures are being set. Many kids are falling into bad life habits such as vaping, overeating, lack of exercise, and lack of personal hygiene. Lack of preparedness for post-secondary education. Why is this administration depending on FFCRA Act running out on 12/31? It may not. If you do not have a contingency plan that we have heard to date. Why can't we work with the staff we have? Many are fearful to speak in public session only to be pegged as someone who disrespects teachers or administrators, which I assure you none of the families I interviewed have that sentiment. Families of seniors are most panicked. This administration is not considerate of the student and have not given them a voice. Parents fear they will lose their kids even more after fall sports end next week. The vast majority of New Hampshire schools are in fact providing some sort of in-person instruction. As of last night, CMS, with a student body of 1,200 students, will be going back for their Try-2 starting on December 7th, and K-5 will be returning next month. Does this not change the WHS staff that qualifies for FFCRA? Exeter High School also passed in-person start for their second semester. Unlike Winnacunnet, they operate on a semester and we operate on a trimester. If there is not a plan today, we will not be able to execute for weeks or months to come. We are extremely disappointed in what we were brought this evening. This model and the leadership team is failing the biggest stakeholder, the student. The social and emotional well-being of our students is at great risk, and they need to be heard. We are respectfully asking the board to schedule an emergency planning meeting tonight in order to move the needle and present the public with a new plan that includes a hybrid or full in-person model with a remote option by November 4th to vote for the start of the Try-To implementation that is set to begin on December 7th. Thank you, your valued stakeholders.
And Ms. Chase, can you email that to me so I can enter that in with the minutes? It sounded like you were reading something.
Yes, I was, and yes, I will. Thank you,
Okay.
Rhonda.
Thank you.
Thank
The
you,
next
Pam.
person,
Go ahead.
the next person we have is the name that comes up as Kelly Parrott. Ms. Parrott, are you there?
You hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I just want to first reiterate that Mrs. Chu's letter was spot on for so many concerns that so many parents are feeling. We have had absolutely no surveys since children have returned to school since August. Whereas in the spring, we were surveyed almost weekly. You are not asking for our feedback, and I really feel that you need to hear it. We were told that enriched virtual learning would be enriched as compared to what was done as an emergency exercise in the spring. I personally have seen nothing change. My daughter, for example, is in Spanish 5. There are only 4 students in her class. Why can't they meet in person? Students who are taking lab sciences need to be in a lab to have that opportunity. And while I think it is wonderful that we are allowing sports to occur, there are many students that sports is not their only thing. They are in the arts, they are in drama, they are in choir, and we are restricting any of those abilities for students to meet and be together. That they could do it safely in a distance environment, whether that be outside or in a large room. This remote learning cannot continue indefinitely. We need to have a plan. I implore you to please look at what Exeter High School has done recently, how they are now having A and B days to return. I ask you to look at Portsmouth High School, who's going to school at least 1 day a week. Why are we isolating these children with no plan to return? I feel very strongly that our children will learn most effectively in person. These seniors especially are preparing for their life after high school, and whether that be college or work or the military, they need that in-person education. We are doing a disservice to our children, and I hope that you will hear our words and our passion behind those words, that we need a plan. You need to survey the parents and the students. You haven't asked for our opinion except for vacation since August, and I feel that is unacceptable. I appreciate everyone's doing, and I understand it is a very difficult situation, but people are working. People are going to the grocery store. We have to get on with our lives, and we can do it in a safe and respectful way. I thank you very much for your time, and I hope that you will put together a plan in place as soon as possible to return these children to school, at least in a partial way, if not full time. Thank you.
Ms. Parrott, can you please provide us with your address and your affiliation with the school?
Yes, my name is Kelly Parrott, 2 Garrett Drive, Northampton, New Hampshire. I've had 2 children that graduated from Winnacunnet, and my daughter is a senior at Winnacunnet currently.
Thank you. And if your notes were written down, if you could email those to me as well.
That was from the heart, but I will write something up and include it as well.
All right, thank you.
Kelly, thank you.
The next person I have, the name that's coming across says Stephen Janettos. Mr. Janettos, if you could state your name and address and your affiliation with the school.
Certainly. Stephen Janettos. I live in Hampton as a parent of a junior. I'm also a graduate of Winnacunnet High School. So I have 2 questions that I will just throw out there. I understand they probably won't be responded to this evening, but I think they're important. I'd like to have you, the board, help me understand how a continued remote learning model promotes equity and fairness to the 75 to 85% of the parents and kids who prefer to have their children resume an in-person learning model. Those numbers come from your preliminary draft survey numbers that you shared earlier. My second question is, I'd like to understand, how have you engaged and what have you learned from other local schools such as St. Thomas or Portsmouth that have been in in-person sessions since early September? I don't believe either of those questions have been addressed this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Next name I have is Colby Patalis. Mr. Patalis or Ms. Patalis, if you could just.
Hello, how are you?
State your name and address and.
My name is Colby Patalis. I'm a senior and I'm also the senior class president at Winnacunnet, and I live in Hampton. My address is 2 Caroline Ave, Hampton, New Hampshire. I just want to support my fellow peers and voice some concerns that they brought to me. One of them is the lack of healthy discussions in the classroom. It's very clear that doing a Zoom debate cannot compare to an in-person debate. I've heard various concerns that students feel they are missing out on these valuable discussions that would happen normally in school. I can also personally attest to the fact that Zoom debates are just not the same and not as beneficial as a normal discussion or debate in a classroom. I strongly believe that debate should be encouraged among students, as it's a valuable tool that we can use to connect with one another and share our perspectives, especially in a historic time like right now. In my view, virtual learning has put a large strain on students' ability to share ideas, which is not only detrimental to the students' education, but their well-being. Not being able to connect with one another is a huge concern, and virtual learning is only making it worse. I would like to voice my support for Ms. Chase. And my last concern is, I do not understand how you can say that 15% of the survey respondents that do not want to go back to school is enough to keep the virtual learning plan in place when you kept me home from school upon arrival from Italy without a choice, while the rest of the student body was in school. Thank you.
The next name I have here is Hayes Waddell. Mr. Waddell, if you could provide your name, address, and your relationship to the school.
Yeah, my name is Hayes Waddell. I'm a senior at Winnacunnet, and I live on 33 Viano Island in Northampton. And I wanted to speak to also follow up what Colby said and Pam Chase and provide a student's perspective on this whole thing, because I do feel that the student voice has not been heard, mainly because our voice and our opinion has not been asked for. And one of the biggest issues I've seen with online schooling is the mental health effect it has on kids. Every day we wake up and we just do the same thing. Kids they hop on their desk and they stare at their computer all day and listen to their teachers. It has a terrible mental effect on kids, causing people to be depressed, just going through this endless cycle every day. People are losing track of time. Weekends don't even feel real anymore. You're just doing homework. And it's just, Albert Einstein, he defined insanity as doing the same thing over and over again and expecting change. That's basically what we're doing. We're doing the same thing over and over again, expecting change to come from the administration, but we are not getting any. Mr. Lupini, I've seen on your Twitter, you retweet a lot of stuff about mental health, so you clearly understand the mental health effects that the pandemic has and also online school, but yet you're still putting your students in a place that is very detrimental to their mental health. Another thing I really do not understand with this whole thing is the timeline. there's no research or study that shows coronavirus is going anywhere anytime soon. So why do you keep delaying the timeline so much? Labs and art classes are also a big concern. If the seniors can come in to take the SATs, why can't we have small groups in school? And another big concern of mine is Steve Genados touched on this, is why you're representing the wants and needs of the minority and not the majority in this situation, because most kids and parents do in fact want to go back to school. I feel that you all got into this line of work because you care about students and you want to make a positive change in their lives, and it's your job to act in the best interest of the students. So I'm concerned that why we haven't seen change and why it seems you are not acting in the best interest of the students. On paper, it might seem that way, but that is not how it feels from this side. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hayes, and also Colby. Thank you as students. It gave us another perspective. Thank you.
The next person I have is James Sununu. Mr. Sununu, if you could just state your address and relationship to the school.
My name is James Sununu. I'm a resident of Northampton at 12 Evergreen Drive, and I'm a parent to two Winnacunnet students. I'm going to reiterate some of the comments that other folks made earlier, and I wholeheartedly agree with them. And while I speak for myself, I know the thoughts and concerns I express here are shared by many, many other parents. I'm here tonight to implore you to take whatever steps are necessary to return our students to in-person learning as soon as possible. But we all recognize the extraordinary circumstances everyone has had to adapt to and work within for the last 7 months. We've also learned much about the toll these conditions are taking on our kids and what can be done to return to a modified sense of normalcy for their benefit. Over the last weeks and months, there's been ample data available on how schools can reopen for in-person learning and about the very low risk that is posed from kids being in school. We've seen data from schools in Europe that have been open for months. We've seen significant data collected on schools that have reopened under various models here in the US, and there have been numerous other studies pointing to the ability to open schools for in-person learning safely. Collectively, this data shows that even in areas where case rates are still elevated, schools are not transmission vectors for community spread. And here in northern New England, we see New Hampshire, Maine, and Vermont continue to see the lowest case rates in the country. On the flip side, we see more and more reporting on the toll this isolation is taking on kids and how important it is to get them back to in-person learning. You read reports of significantly greater stress, anxiety, and loneliness in kids. Reports of increased substance abuse and severe child abuse are growing. Educational attainment is clearly being impacted, with some researchers indicating it may take years for kids to catch up to where they should be if they ever do. The educational, emotional, and psychological consequences of this isolation on kids have been enormous, and I believe if it continues, the outcomes will be devastating. The impact of this isolation and the challenges of remote learning are hitting the most vulnerable kids and families, the ones least able to adapt the hardest. If we can't reopen our schools under the current conditions, knowing full well how imperative it is for the well-being of our students, then I'm forced to conclude that we'll never reopen until COVID is somehow eradicated. And if that's what we're waiting for, then parents should know that now and not be left dangling with the uncertainty. I served on the Northampton School Board for 6 years. While we obviously never had to face a situation like this when I was on the board, I do believe that even in these circumstances, the tenet of what is best for the students as the first and most important measuring stick still applies. Getting kids back in the classroom presents challenges, but I believe the cost to our kids of not doing so vastly outweighs the small risk that is seen in returning to in-person learning. Thank you.
Thank you, James.
Sorry. The next name I have here is Jennifer Waddell. Ms. State your name.
Yes, I'm Jennifer Waddell. I have a son, Hayes Senior, who just spoke. I also have a daughter, Mills, that graduated a couple of years ago, and I live in Northampton. I'm not going to rehash what everyone else has said, although I obviously full-heartedly agree with it. And I honestly commend my son for eloquently, I think, really accurately depicting what's going on with the kids. There's three things that I heard tonight from this group that concern me. I heard one, that the three things that I heard of why we're not going back or why we haven't been able to figure out how to go back. And I heard one, staffing. Staffing not because of health concerns, but staffing because of childcare. That's an issue for all of us dealing with COVID. That's not unique to teachers. While I appreciate that's a reality, it's something we need to figure out. The second thing I heard that the reason we aren't going back or figuring out a hybrid model is because of this 15 to 20%. Again, what Steve Janados has said and echoing that is, I'm very concerned. Why is it we keep focusing on this smaller minority? And again, 15 to 20% say they don't want to go back. Again, is that because of health concerns or is that because they just don't want to go back? And why is it that their opinion and vote matters more than the majority? And the third thing I heard is that it's difficult. Yes, this is difficult. These are uncertain times, but that is the job of this group and of this board. And so I want to follow up with what Pam Chase said, asking for an emergency meeting to solve this. Time is of the essence. This is not going away. It's something we need to figure out how to live with. And hope is not a strategy. I expect this group to work hard and to work swiftly to help solve this for the greater good of our children, because they are the most important. I was on the school board website and you have your educational philosophy posted. And the first sentence reads, "We, the members of the SAU 21 educational community, are committed to developing lifelong learners who are creative and critical thinkers and who contribute to a changing global society." Listening to this meeting tonight, I don't know that I'm hearing us go back to that sentence. We need to focus again on the children, turning them into learners. They cannot be learners if they are not developing emotionally and socially, which is what is happening in this isolated environment. So please, I ask that you listen to everything that's been talked about tonight and you consider doing something quickly. Thank you.
Again, thank you, Jennifer.
I have three more names. Kim Raynaud, I think is how you say it. I'm not quite sure. She can just state her name, her address, and her affiliation with the school. Kim, are you there?
Hi, sorry. Yes, my name is Kim Renault. My address is 12 Fielding Lane, Hampton. And I have a senior at Winnacunnet, and I also have a child who graduated in 2019. I wasn't planning on speaking this evening. I did want to publicly state, though, I did send the school board a letter earlier today. And if you would like to enter that into the records, please feel free to do so. I'm crying because what you heard Colby and Hayes say, this isn't even about education. This is about kids' lives. And you guys have to do something. And that's all I want to say.
Thank you again, Kim. Thank you.
I have Claire Redemacher, I think is how you say her name. Claire, if you could just state your name, your address, and affiliation with the school.
Hi, my name is Claire Rademacher. My address is 18 Falcone Circle, Hampton. I'm a junior at Winnacunnet. I'm also the junior class president. I wanted to speak today because I think that us staying at home is just absurd at this point, because there are so many other schools that are already back in session, and the fact that all these sports teams are back and like in close contact with each other, but we can't be back at school in a certain way, like even in a hybrid setting, and just the fact that all these other schools around us are doing it. And it also comes down to like the social aspect. The fact that we're all cooped up in our homes is like very mentally detrimental to students, and also learning is really difficult online. I know my peers have been struggling with this, and I myself am. It's just very difficult to learn, and I'm not receiving the same education as I would if I were in person, and I'm not receiving the same like social aspect as I would if I were in person at school. And it's just, there's a lot of people you don't get to talk to. like I have certain school friends that I only communicate with at school. It's just like the way our relationship works, and it's like it's sad that this is what our lives have come to. And yeah, I think it's really important that we need to get back in school.
Thank you, Claire.
Thank you, Claire.
Sorry, I have Lainey Parrott. And then I have one more person. I'm getting a message that Lainey's using an older version of Zoom. I have to promote her to as a panelist. Lainey, can you just state your name, your address, and your affiliation with the school?
Yes, sorry that you had to add me as a panelist. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Chromebook. I appreciate you all for opening this up to the public. My name is Lainey Parrott. I'm a senior at Winnacunnet, and I'm currently the vice president. I was unaware that my mom was going to be on this call as well, but I share the same address as her, 2 Garrett Drive, Northampton, New Hampshire. I would just like to extend my thanks to Henry Marsh, Leslie Lawford, as well as Principal McGowan and Superintendent Lupini. I understand that you guys are under tremendous amounts of stress and facing challenges that a school board, superintendent, and principal have never had to think about.
Excuse me, wait a minute, Lainey, can you speak up? Somehow I can barely hear you.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
No, you're really muffled. I'm sorry.
I apologize. Can you hear me better now?
Yes, thank you.
Been some headphones. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
I was just repeat that again. I would just like to reiterate my thanks to Chairman Henry Marsh, as well as Leslie Lawford, Principal McGowan, and Superintendent Lupini. I understand that you all are under a tremendous amount of stress, and it's definitely a difficult decision to make about the students. There were some great points brought up from parents as well as students. Some things I would just like to touch again on are students. As students are asking for surveys as we got in the springtime, which I know McGowan sent out often. I would just like to ask for the surveys to be really specific, asking what classes are challenging, what classes are assigning too much workload, which classes are working, not just whether we can log into Zoom, because all the students at Winnacunnet are pretty technical savvy as our generation is. So I would just ask for really specific questions asked in regard of what classes are doing what, and as well as what is working well in classes. As I know, we can't go into a hybrid right away and we can't go back to school right away. So why not make our Zoom classes better than they are right now? I do appreciate what Bill McGowan as well as Superintendent Lupini have made for the enriched virtual learning. It's definitely better than the crisis learning of the spring. What I've heard from a lot of students are the 3 classes per day is a good amount, as well as the break. So I just want to touch on what are the positives of Zoom and online learning right now. One thing that I think is really important is the emphasis of sports over academics. Obviously at our school, academics should come before athletics. Maybe I would be feeling differently if I was playing a fall sport right now, but I think a lot of things that a lot of students are feeling annoyed about is how much athletics are getting support right now. Obviously, we just spent all that time talking about the 35-mile radius, which I think is important for sports to still occur, but I would like more focus on the academics, as that is definitely more important. Let me see. Not to mention some of the parents who did spoke today, their kids played sports, whereas a lot of other students aren't voicing their opinions who don't play sports, as well as kids that are in chamber singers or band or jazz band or art classes. I would like to see in the next meeting, things to be brought up would be implementing a survey sent out to students, one that is specific, and what are your plans for bringing small groups into the school? My Spanish class is 4 kids. We would love to be able to meet again. I understand that there are safety precautions that need to happen, as well as risk for some teachers deciding not to come back to school or would rather stay at home. So I would just like those talked about in the next meeting. Again, I extend my thanks to all of you, and I understand you're under immense amount of stress, and I thank you for opening this up to the public. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Lanny. Say hi to Mom for me.
I have one last person with their hand raised. The name is Tyler Hughes. He also was brought in as a panelist.
Sorry about that. Again, I'm on my Chromebook. Good evening to you all. I wasn't originally planning on speaking tonight, but first of all, my name is Tyler Hughes, One Downer Drive, Hampton, New Hampshire, and I'm the student body president of Winnacunnet High School. You know, I wasn't originally planning on speaking tonight, but many of my fellow student council officers spoke up. And I felt that I should speak up for some of my classmates too, and just give you a little bit of what I'm hearing around the halls of Winnacunnet from my constituents. These are the people that I was recently elected to represent. First of all, my many thanks again to the school board, Chairman Marsh, Principal McGowan, Dr. Lupini. We appreciate the work that you've been doing on this effort. We appreciate, and I especially like to highlight my appreciation of the continuing partnership with student government. And we hope that we can continue that partnership as we head forward in working for the best interests of students this year. I just want to echo 2 points that I've heard time and time again with my constituents. You've heard them tonight, but I'm just going to quickly touch on them. One is the surveys. Students feel that they want to have a voice, and the surveys were a big part in that during the emergency implementation of remote learning at the end of last year, and they certainly feel that they would be beneficial this year as well. And so we would love to see those surveys implemented again. And then the second thing is, I think a lot of students are really understanding about this whole situation and really know that bringing, you know, a whole school in for a hybrid model or something is a very, very complicated scenario. But we would like to see, there was talk of maybe bringing in clubs, activities, and arts classes, science labs, that enrichment part of the enriched virtual learning. And we really like to see a plan for that start to be put in motion while we still figure out the intricacies of what a hybrid model would mean for Winnacunnet High School. So again, thank you so much for your time tonight, and have a wonderful evening. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Tyler.
I have someone by the name of Lynn. Mr. Chair, I'm just not sure how long we're letting public comment go on. Lynn, I have to also promote you as a panelist. Please state your first and last name, your relationship to the school, and your address. You're muted.
Hi there, my name is Lynn Rademacher. I live at 18 Falcone Circle in Hampton. I have had 2 students that have graduated high school, one in 2017, one in 2020, and Claire Rademacher is currently a junior at Winnacunnet. And I wanted to speak because I'm a teacher, and I think we all know that all medical professionals, I think we all know what the Hippocratic Oath is, and it is to do no harm. But the teacher's version of a Hippocratic Oath is to make all decisions that are best by students. And that is not happening here. And it's actually devastating and enraging to watch. I am in my building full time. I'm teaching some students remotely, and I see the devastating things that are going on in different homes. And we are not doing what's best by students. And it's time to stand up and change this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lynn.
Okay, I have Molly McKenna.
Hi, I'm a student at Winnacunnet High School. I'm a senior, and I live on 56 Scooter Landing in Hampton, New Hampshire. I just wanted to go into the screen time that we are currently using. On average, a child from 8 to 18 should only spend a maximum of 2.5 hours using a screen, and currently we are on our computers from 6 to 1:15 in the afternoon, which is way over 6 hours. And I know this causes a lot of students distress when it comes to headaches and things like that, but also consider the fact that we are on our computers far more than 6 hours because we also have added homework that we have to do online. Currently, everything we are doing is online, and the only way that we can do things is on our computer. So we're on our computer for a much more of the appropriate time, which can cause issues for kids. And I know that the majority of my fellow students often complain about getting headaches and like losing focus. And it's not a good learning environment for students our age and have young developing brains to learn. That's it.
Thank you, Molly.
Mr. Chair, that's everybody that had, we do have one repeat. I don't know if we're allowing a second comment or if you're done, or you just let me know what we're doing.
Is this the last one?
As of now.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Ms. Chase, can you just go ahead and
Right.
reiterate?
It's Pam Chase again.
Okay.
At the top of the public comment, Mr. Marsh, you said that no one on the board is allowed to respond to us. So can you help everyone that's listening on this call right now? We don't want to just end tonight abruptly and not hear from anyone again until the next school board meeting in November. So you might not be able to comment on the specifics that were talked about tonight, but we're not going away. We want a plan in front of us for, at minimum, getting the kids back in school by the beginning of try number 2, which starts December 7th. How will we know walk me through what will now happen with everyone that's on this call today. Will you all reconvene and potentially have an emergency meeting? What exactly is going to happen? Can you at least answer that?
What I had stated is that we don't get into a contest back and forth. And
understood.
And you understand?
Yeah, I understand that.
There's a lot of people, and just to get into,
right.
And you and I have spoken before, and at length, and I do appreciate your call, and I appreciate the second call coming in as well. And I think I've been very respectful. At this point, I'll leave it to Dr. Lupini to reply if you'd like. If not, other board members at this time, if they'd like to say something, it's up to the board, but we don't get into an interchange as we're doing right now. But thank you.
I would love to speak up if I might. Yeah.
Go right ahead.
I am in awe of the number of community members who spoke up tonight. I thank you so much for you sharing your voices and your thoughts. It's very important to us to hear from you, and I'm very grateful that you all showed up and shared that with us tonight. I heard you loud and clear. I hope everyone else tonight listening heard you loud and clear. The mental health of our students should be our #1 concern, even over their education. They have to be healthy. We need to take care of our students. So thank you for responding the way you did tonight.
Mr. Marsh, the only thing I guess I would say is that at the beginning of this, I said that our plan was to continue to work with the high school administration to have a plan. Our goal is what we heard from people here tonight, the second trimester. I do want to clarify that when I talked about a certain percentage, I was not suggesting that certain percentage would keep us from some in-person model. I was merely suggesting that it was another one of the issues that we face. So I want to be clear about that. But my hope is that that happens in terms of that planning with Mr. McGowan's team next week, and that that by the end of next week, beginning of the following week, that we have some recommendations for conclusions on a number of these issues, including first and foremost what the beginning of second trimester could look like in terms of in-person, hybrid, some type of model that brings kids back into school. That's our goal.
Henry, you're muted.
I think you alluded to a couple things last night and also tonight, and that you did send the survey out that is concluding on Friday, and to make any decision would be preemptive of your conclusions on that survey, and that the respondents, you're looking at 100% respondents, and you'd be contacting the parents of those students so you can finalize and get back to Mr. McGowan and the board with a recommendation. And it's been your goal to look at semester 2, and but that's been a goal, and you've been working to it, and I want to thank you for that. We know it's pretty tough. So anyone else that has something to say?
I have just one comment. Again, like Heidi said, I appreciate, as I know the whole board does, the comments tonight. I was especially proud of the students that called in. I thought they were great. What I do want everybody to know, and I think they do know, it's just frustration that comes through, is that this board and this administrative team are working 24/7 on this. It's not that we're meeting once a month and discussing it. This is a daily thing that is going on. And I commend everyone for all of their work. When it comes to students' mental health, there is help there too, that I want the parents and the students to understand, that please call your guidance counselors, call, somebody at the school, because there will be help there, because I know we're all struggling with it. And until we can get back face to face with each other, we are here to help, and there are people in the school that will be there for you. And I just hope you all know that.
Thank you, Leslie. Anyone else before we move to executive session with
Henry?
Yes, Tony, go right ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Leslie and Heidi stated. I wanted to, I don't know the mechanism, but I'm fully supportive of any sort of additional meetings, emergency, whatever we call them. If we, if we need to do that, I'm supportive. I think it's a good idea. I would be happy to discuss these issues and see what can be. I'll add that I've got 2 kids in the school too, so I fully understand. I'm not thrilled either that they're not in school.
Anyone else who would like to speak before we go into executive session on an issue? Okay. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Second? Thank you. That was Leslie.
Second.
Thank you. Dr. Lupini,
David, are we going to another?
Yes, due to the number of attendees at this meeting, what I've done is invited other board members, all these board members, to a separate meeting. It'll be in your email inbox right now. And then we'll come back after.
Right, we do need to take a vote on this first. Heidi Terracina,
Yes.
Henry Marsh,
yes.
Leslie LaFond,
Yes.
Mike Rabideau,
Yes.
and Tony Delano. Was it Tony Delano? Okay. All right, so the meeting is entering non-public session at 8:22 p.m. I will put up a screen showing that the board is in non-public.
Thank you.
So do we leave this one?
Yes, David sent you an invite to a secondary meeting. Okay, so we have a motion from Mike Rabideau and a second from Heidi Terracina to resume the public meeting at 8:44 p.m. I will take a vote. Heidi Terracina,
Yes.
Henry Marsh,
Yes.
Leslie LaFond,
Yes.
Mike Rabideau,
Yes.
and Tony Delano.
Yes.
Okay, the meeting is recording and we have resumed.
Thank you. Is there a motion to accept the resignation?
I'll make that motion. As submitted.
As
I'll
submitted?
second.
And Leslie second. Need a roll call vote?
Tony Delano,
Yes.
Mike Rabideau,
Oops. Yes.
Leslie LaFond,
Yes.
Henry Marsh,
Yes.
Heidi Terracina.
Yes.
I have that vote recorded.
We didn't have to give the person's name, did we?
I have it in the motion. Usually you do.
Okay, it's fine, rather than to put it out there.
Yeah, the motion to accept the resignation of art teacher Sarah Sheffield, effective August 31st.
Okay. Okay, is there any other business, Dr. Lupini or Bill?
Either's fine. No, not that I'm aware of, other than the meeting dates for our upcoming meetings. You have a couple of budget review meetings. Don't forget a very important, Mr. Rabideau, joint board policy meeting on November 4th. To celebrate Election Day. We'll do that the next day.
I'll be there.
Excellent. Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting? Oh, everybody wants to stay.
To adjourn.
Thank you, Tony.
I'm muted again.
You said you were neutered again?
Yeah, right.
That's
Night, guys.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank
All
you
those-
for everything, guys.
Just
Bye,
raise your
everybody.
hand.
It was
Thank
real.
you. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
Bye-bye.